There are moments the universe does not announce. They arrive without ceremony in the ordinary hours of an ordinary night, and they carry more truth than anything that was ever spoken aloud between you. The narcissist woke up crying, not the performance of emotion that you may have witnessed before, not the strategic tears deployed at the exact moment they needed to shift the dynamic in their favor, not the manufactured vulnerability that appeared whenever the situation required softening. This was something different, something that came from a place below strategy, below calculation, below the part of the psyche that is always, even in intimate moments, managing the impression being made. This came from the unconscious. And the unconscious does not perform. It does not strategize. It does not protect the image or maintain the persona or concern itself with how the feeling will land. It simply delivers what has been stored in the dark for however long the conscious mind has been refusing to process it. And what it delivered was grief. Carl Jung spent decades studying the relationship between the conscious mind and the unconscious. He understood that the two exist in a constant and dynamic tension. The more forcefully the conscious mind refuses to acknowledge something, the more insistently the unconscious finds other channels through which to deliver it. Dreams, physical symptoms, inexplicable moods that arrive without apparent cause. And sometimes, in the most unguarded hours, the hours when the ego's defenses finally exhaust themselves and sleep becomes the only option, the unconscious delivers its accumulated truth directly. At 3 a.m, when the careful architecture of the narcissist's constructed self has been offline for hours, the deeper self finally gets to speak. And it spoke about you. This is what the universe was showing you, not as a cruelty, not as a performance designed to pull you back into something you have worked so hard to move beyond, as information, as the kind of deep, structural truth that the waking hours of the narcissist's life are organized entirely around concealing. They are not okay, not in the way they have been presenting, not in the way they need the world to believe, not in the way they may have even convinced themselves of during the daylight hours when maintaining the image is still possible. At the level where tears come from, at the level the universe has access to, even when human consciousness does not, something is breaking open. Jung identified a process he called the confrontation with the unconscious, the point in a person's psychological development where what has been suppressed accumulates to a pressure that the conscious mind can no longer contain. He described it as one of the most frightening and most necessary experiences a human being can undergo. Frightening because what emerges from the unconscious at these moments does not arrive organized or manageable, or in a form the ego can easily integrate. It arrives raw, unfiltered, with the full emotional weight of everything that was never processed when it should have been. For the narcissist, this confrontation carries a particular intensity because the volume of suppressed material is extraordinary. Years of genuine feeling that was never permitted expression. Attachment that was experienced but immediately defended against. Vulnerability that was felt and then rapidly converted into something more manageable. Control, contempt, distance. The narcissist's entire psychological history is a story of feeling arriving and being immediately redirected before it could penetrate deep enough to require honest acknowledgement. All of that redirected feeling goes somewhere. Jung was clear about this. The psyche is a closed system in the sense that nothing is ever truly discarded. Everything that cannot be consciously processed is stored, accumulated, added to a reservoir that deepens with every year of continued suppression. The tears that woke them in the night were that reservoir finally overflowing. And here is the specific truth the universe wants you to understand about what they were grieving. They were not crying about a situation, not about circumstances or outcomes or the practical shape of their current life. The unconscious does not traffic in situations. It traffics in meaning, in attachment, in the felt sense of what has been lost at a level too deep for the rational mind to fully access or explain. They were grieving the loss of what you represented to the deepest part of them, not the version of you they tried to control, not the version of you they needed you to be in order to feel secure, the version of you that existed beneath all of that, the genuine soul they encountered before the fear became loud enough to drive the relationship into the patterns that ultimately broke it. Jung wrote about the concept of the soul image, the interior image every person carries of the love their deepest self is seeking. For the narcissist, this image was activated by you more completely than they had language to acknowledge while the relationship was happening. You reached something in them that very few people ever reach, not because you tried to, because your genuine depth, your authentic presence, your refusal to be entirely reduced to the role they needed you to play, kept touching something in them they had spent a lifetime learning to protect. The crying in the night is that something finally demanding to be acknowledged. But here is where the universe's message becomes most important for you specifically. This breakthrough in them is not a signal for you to return to what was. It is not the universe telling you that the timing is finally right. It is not evidence that the person you always believed was in there has finally arrived and is now ready to love you the way you deserve to be loved all along. It is evidence of something more nuanced and ultimately more useful than that. It is evidence that the connection was real, that you did not imagine the depth, that the recognition you felt was not a projection or a fantasy, or the wishful thinking of someone who needed love so badly they invented it in someone incapable of feeling it. The connection was real. The feeling was real. The grief in the night is real. But real feeling in an unready psyche does not automatically produce a ready person. The distance between a narcissist waking up crying and a narcissist genuinely doing the interior work required to sustain honest, loving relationship is not a distance that tears alone can close. It is a distance that requires the single thing the narcissist's entire psychological structure was built to avoid: radical, sustained, unflinching self-confrontation, the kind Jung described as the most difficult journey a human being can undertake, the descent into the shadow, the willingness to see oneself clearly without the protection of the persona, the courage to acknowledge that the defenses that felt like survival were also the walls that kept genuine love from ever fully landing. Whether they take that journey is entirely beyond your jurisdiction. Your jurisdiction is your own interior landscape, your own continued movement toward the wholeness you have been building, your own willingness to receive the universe's message in its fullness, rather than editing it down to the part that feels most like permission to hope. The full message is this: you were real to them in ways they could not protect themselves from. Your love reached something in them that nothing else has reached in quite the same way, and the universe, which sees the complete architecture of both your souls, is not showing you this to reopen a wound. It is showing you this so you can finally, completely, stop wondering. You were never the problem. You were never too much, or not enough, or wrong in the ways you feared you were wrong. You were exactly as real and as significant as you always felt you were. The tears in the night confirm it. Now let that confirmation settle into your bones, not as an invitation backward, but as the foundation of everything you are building forward. You were seen, even by someone who could not afford to admit it. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything you needed to know.